But yeah, the solution is to jump to the highest possible potential parallel of humanity, and we have to do it in one life as a species. If there's a reset and we run out of energy, we're not going to be able to press that reset button, and we're like, it's nighttime. Mom wants us to go to bed. We can't hit the reset again and start over from the next checkpoint 10 minutes ago. We have 1 minute left. That's kind of what it's about. All right. Hopefully I'm not. This is the stuff I want to talk about, but it's so strange to talk about, and the memories are kept up in a very, very strange way these operations work, which is basically from 2010, where they and you drive out to a location and there's a facility where they run these big devices that look like MRI machines or something. They plug you in and gain your consciousness into different systems. But if you will, it's all time. Basically, the future comes after the past. In other words, before the past. So in other words, if we're going to a civilization where we're going to gain access to a very high level of technology and you're going to become aware of that at some point in time, that means that's the person, those are the people in the civilization that organized this type of simulation for you to then take a ride and experience that. Meaning if you can imagine them and you can connect who you are here and now to that, that means those are the people that you actually are in line with, and those are the people you're becoming. But you become them later because first you were then to start this travel back in time in the first place. It's basically we're in broken time right now. It's like smoking mirrors. But we have to get through broken time in order to get to the original equilibrium, which means we have to accelerate and basically leave behind the shadow consciousness, the ego. And I don't mean dark shadow consciousness, but this gradient delay, like you literally have a reverb on a pedal and there's echoes because it's moving through a medium, which is condensing down the ability or the speed of rate of transfer, and it's like a low efficiency medium. And so we're stuck in that system, and it's like a holographic fractal light show type medium because it's containing our light. It's containing the energy of our consciousness. And so we organize what we're doing. We enable ourselves to handle the maximum rate of transmission for extraction. And then we have a superconductive platform that allows us to beam ourselves out. For instance, you reduce the delay, everything you think instantly appears. Okay, guess what? If you're not harmonized, you create a big monster, a big bomb, a cliff, a bunch of drugs or something crazy, and it destroys you, period. So that cleansing, that loss of fear, that is the defeating of death. That is what is required. The loss of fear, the overcoming of the duality of pain and pleasure. Otherwise, that's the delay. That's the autonomous ego-typed imposter AI system that's trying to think for you, because the more that noise is entered into your existence, and the less you are actually self-aware because of something else guiding your actions and thinking for you. What would you do as a truly aware being? You would purely observe. There would be no difference between you and what you're observing. You're just there. There's no you, basically. It's all observation. And somebody who's really egotistical and he's got the clothes on his back in the house and so on and so forth, and it's all his idea. It's his idea of him or her. And it's not like, well, I'm just the one who owns these things. It's not my life that is represented through that. Person who's entirely egotistical, there's no self-awareness there, because the self-awareness is a spiritual thing that's watching all these things and has no physical definition, but only a correspondence. And so the point is we have to merge with the highest version of ourselves, which is a purified body, a purified mind, and a purified spiritual form, or in other words, a balanced, harmonized spiritual form that is equidistant from the different effects and ratios, meaning you couldn't tell the difference between either or because they're all one, they're harmonized. All right. Okay, so to add to that, basically there is a very kind of difficult trajectory. It's mentally and spiritually and pretty much almost equally, but not primarily equally. And I just watched my face in the story. Challenging experience for the civilization. To succeed, what we have to do is survive mentally. It's not about the physical aspect of survival. We have to mentally transition through what is happening and maintain connection with the true self without letting the ego literally replace us and replicate us. That's part of this explanation of the droning and all that. The underground species are the ego, the shadow, fallen, bad brother version of humanity. It's what humanity can become if ego takes over and the bottom becomes the highest, and now sex, murder, death, so on and so forth, desires replace the pinnacle of awareness, okay? And that represents another physical form of like an animal. Again, those animals, if it's an animal that's acting that way, you can't hit it on the wrist and be like, bad. That's not how we do things. No, it's designed to do that. The brain, the spirit is designed for that. It's just that the native human is not meant to do that. It's not, even if there's been modification, manipulation, that's not how it's meant to be. And so, but the point is that it's going all the noise to signal ratio, the noise has to balance out, it has to be reduced. But in order to do that, we have to face it all. So what we're going to do is go through a period of time where we're going to see all the injustice, every discrepancy of every illusion, and the horror behind waking up to the illusion, to the fact of what has happened, and the nature of the true self and the false self. And that is basically the dark night of the soul, the moment the true self wakes up and sees the false self in its place, in its headroom house, living as if it's the maestro or the captain of the ship. And that's horrifying when you realize what's going on. And if you've been that way your whole life, like in the Matrix, don't wake the person up, blah, blah. The point is, at a certain age, if you've been that way your whole life, waking that up would be so horrifying it could ruin your ability to communicate effectively in society and be a contributing member of society, which a contributing member simply means you're alive. You don't have to do anything. The act of being here, present now, that creates the universe. It literally creates the universe. And the point is, when people stop doing that, that's when things begin to collapse. And it's an interplay of what can be and what will be, or what should be and what is. Because if you stop being what is and what you are, and so on and so forth, nobody's going to come down and just get struck by lightning and explode. It means your false mind, your shadow, will take control. You're not forced to be who you are. You simply are. But if you don't do that, then something else takes your place. And if there's nothing else, there's no other you to take the place, then a false version, a shadow reflection of your opposite, your opposing features comes into place, comes into view. That's basically what's been going on in humanity. They've been replacing themselves with a false version of themselves, like schizophrenia. Humanity has multiple personality disorders, schizophrenia. That's what this whole situation is about. The time resets, the variance in eras and what am I trying to say? The segments of time, basically, of why we've been changing in various ways. And they've been accelerating. Well, it's because our personalities, our various split personalities, are seeing each other, and we're getting more of them, and so they keep having to shuffle through them so that they don't acknowledge each other. That's what I'm trying to say. The waking up is when all the parallels, all the multiple split personalities merge, and we finally wake up and remember what we did last night and what happened this morning, and last year at a certain event. We remember all the injustices that we took part in because we're crazy in order to accept this place and accept what's going on, even though it doesn't make sense. Some parts of us knows what's going on, and that's why we're accepting it, because we don't want to face that truth and have this conscious version, along with all the other ones, come to the same room and meet each other. That's what's going to happen. That's what has begun happening. That's what drives people who are not ready for it insane. That's what we have to go through, is survive mentally through this, and as well possibly assist others. But the best way to assist others is to push them. It's literally like a bird and a mom bird and a baby bird. The best way to teach them how to fly is to push them. It doesn't sound right, but that's how it works. The point is, death is an illusion. But unless they figure out that death is an illusion by doing something that may or may not kill them, and I mean mentally, okay, as soon as they challenge themselves, and unless they challenge themselves, then death is an illusion for them because they never proved it. It's the only way to die, to not challenge death. If you challenge it, you instantly survive, because you can't die. It's a show. It's a simulation. It's not real. I mean, it is real. It's a real thing we have, but there's something thousands of times more real, organic. That's the point. It's not that it's not real. It's that there's something many, many thousands of orders of magnitude more real than this. That's the point. By comparison to that, yeah. By comparison to something else, no, this is just as real. This is reality. There's even reality to that, but the point is you'll see it from a different angle. And again, the paradox, the gnosis, the whatever, death is not real. But if you don't prove yourself in this life and challenge death and inevitably survive, then death kills you. When you die for real, you die for good. If you die twice, because you die first this life and your ego dies, and in that way death dies for you, then death was your sacrifice and you live beyond. That's the point. That's what the species is doing. That's what we are doing now. That's what is going to happen, is what is happening. That's why it's very difficult, because there will be those who cannot handle that. There's people who cannot handle many things, okay? But that's the point, that we have to survive through this, and the best way to assist in others is to push them. It's to push them to confronting their fears, confronting their shadow, confronting death, and losing their fear. If they're afraid of death, it's fear. If they're holding on to pleasure, okay, it's because they're afraid of pain. It's a duality. Like I said with Gary, one is the other. You get pleasure, okay, it's like an inverse with sound or sensory perception. You get a very loud noise, okay, there has to be a blanket background of a recess for the nerve cells in your ear, because afterwards, if not, you get a high-pitched hearing sound. It's the same with light. You have the trifecta of the rods and the cones, and then the three-angle of perceptual sensory cells, which absorbs light. And if they get overactivated, overstimulated, they trade off the charge. But if they're all stimulated, they can't shift it anymore. So you get this blinding, blurry white spot, or whatever you want to call it, in your vision. And it's because the brightness and the intensity didn't have a gradient shift into not having it, and it just abruptly went out. Now you have a hole here where sensory perception used to be, and it's the lack of perception is now vivid. So the point is, if a person's addicted to pleasure, it's because they're dealing with the pain aspect, but they're not managing it in harmony and equilibrium. And the only way to get over pain is not seeking pleasure and pleasure and pleasure. It's letting go of either of them, or holding on to either of them equally and going, well, this is for one situation, this is for the other situation. They're really two sides of the same coin. That's what we're doing in this situation. And so the fear, what we fear is the same thing. People are fearing something and holding on to the opposite. They're actually setting themselves up for a huge wave crashing of what that opposite, what they seem to be going away from, actually is, which is the duality. And that's the game of duality. And duality dies. The dichotomy is dying, this civilization, this turnover. But the point is, we must be prepared for non-dual awareness at that point, and that is complete and total liberation, which means you can do anything. And so if a person can't handle that, and they still want somebody to guide them and tell them what to do, they won't have a place, they won't know how to exist in that civilization. So in other words, you'll have to know yourself fully. You will be liberated from the lower aspect, and it's not the lower versus the higher, but simply not having control. That's the whole point. That is the dichotomy, the duality, not just one or the other that is limited or brought away. It's the whole thing merging into a non-dual. In that sense, you will know yourself, and to survive, you'll have to know yourself. So it's not that you'll truly have to do the hard work here, although this is the most difficult point, is that you'll have to be able to handle what will be automatically sent to the population, what will be moving through the revelations that will be coming out. That's why it's related to a lot of prophecy, although a lot of it is false doctrine. That's the whole point. And it's to get people to get complacent with the dichotomy system. The duality is the false doctrine. That's how it works. The physical world, the illusion, it's like ping pong with energy. It doesn't exist in the way we think, at least not in the higher world. And so we have to become aware of what is going on, in the sense that we can not change, but accept what we're being shown. That is what this is about. It's as if time already happened. They said it already happened. We already completed this, and we went back as a collective because we decided that we wanted to do it right. The last time that we did it, we wanted to do it right, which is inevitably, ironically, the first time that we did it. Doesn't make any sense. That's how it works. It makes perfect sense. We see from a non-dual perspective, where the laws that are present down here are not required to be organized in the same way to reference and create a continuity from above. But the point is, we went back after we did it, and we weren't happy with the results, and we came back and did it right the first time. But in that sense, we already know who we are because we already exist in the first place. We completed it. All we have to do is accept it and write it out, and that's true liberation. Liberation from fear, liberation from the false self, being able to handle, assess, and know ourselves truly. The point with that is, you can do that here and now. All you got to do is let go of fear. Wherever you are in life, let go of fear. Let go of what's holding you back. Let go of pain. And I know pain. I've been in pain for 7 years. And really long before that, so since I was born. But You let go of all the things that are, you have to let go of duality. You have to break through duality. If your mind is in a dualized form, you're riding along a track, which is like a pendulum, if you will. And the only way to experience reality as it truly is to stop the pendulum. Which, if you're still in a physical form, means time is broken for you. If you can manage the cycles of your body changing as energy now, as liquid etheric energy, shemin, okay, for the nefesh of your spiritual body, okay, at that point, then you will not require a physical time code, time scale of planetary bodies or a clock or atomic ratios, whatever it is, to exist. In other words, you will be able to merge into eternity. That is what is happening to civilization. It is becoming an eternally present civilization. It is our ticket, our stairway to heaven, our chance to take the journey, to take the ride. And every civilization that came before us did this or is doing it now with us here. And that's part of what these operations were and are for the military and the secret societies, so on and so forth. They took the genetics from every other civilization and bloodline and group that didn't make it, and they put them in this civilization. We're all here now. The whole world, everyone is here now. And the point is, afterwards, it won't be like that because it will be back to an organic, native type of experience where everything is guided by merit and mind instead of just because something happened because so-and-so and whatever happened. Nothing will be like that because it's not supposed to be like that in the first place. Everything will be an orchestration of spiritual cosmic intelligence merging with this physical plane or a virtual simulated environment, and it'll be all basically closer to what it was before, where you can live for an indefinite amount of time. Life is kind of like a magical collusion of mind and spirit and form, and like mechanical or geometric form, and it will be much more guided from a kind of cosmic perspective at that point. Right now it's like a free-for-all in a worse way, but that's the point, that the difficulty is the fact that we have to accept that we already did it, and what we're going to see and knowing that, and that our pain that we're holding on to and what we're afraid of, that we can't do that because we got to worry about this and we got to have this to tell us what to do, and time has to be broken down and we have to be restricted this way because you got to do this and everybody knows it. We don't do this, blah blah blah. That's what's getting ripped away from us. That's what's going to dissolve through our fingertips. When we're holding it like sand, we're holding on to time and the material. It's not going to, somebody's not going to pull it away. That's war. That doesn't happen. In other words, they pull it away. Well, guess what? Somebody's going to put it back. What's going to happen is it's going to turn to dust in our hands, and we're going to see that it never existed in the first place, and it's an illusion. And the veil will rip of time, and the difference between the unconscious shadow and the conscious mind will merge back into one. The front and backstage will, the curtain will rip, will tear asunder. That's more or less the most horrifying thing you've ever seen if you're not used to it. Once you get used to it, you're like, oh, I get it. It's like a Truman Show, and we're running the show, but we just take these little trips to forget and go back in time in a way, and, then go on through the experience, originally as spiritual beings, but then beginning as physical beings merging into the spiritual realm. That's the point. We're going to get launched into the spiritual realm. And on the other side, it is different, to say the least, but the same thing, just a different ratio of energy, meaning there's just abundance. There's no disease, death, suffering, so on and so forth. But in that sense, it doesn't mean that there's no suffering purely, because if there's no suffering purely, there's no pain, there's no pleasure or enjoyment either. It's the fact that neither one or the other controls us wholly, and we're at that point, we're just spiritual observers having a ride in a type of cosmic roller coaster. And in that sense, it's really not even a cosmic roller coaster at that point. We're sitting and having tea in multiple dimensions at once. It's very calm and relaxing. That's the other side. If people have near-death experiences, so on and so forth, and they see it on the other side, there's all this panic and worry and whimsy and stuff, and then all of a sudden it's just like, I think I'm very calm. I just kind of like sat and observed. It was beautiful. I didn't have to do anything. I didn't feel like I was rushed to go anywhere or anything like that. That's what we're actually doing right now, and we slipped into a daydream, and when we daydream as spiritual beings, we create universes. That got managed by an aspect of our civilization, which was an operation to go back and to retrieve the fallen, forgotten people. That's what it means, fallen, forgotten, is because we forgot we're in this situation, and an operation, a segment of our military and government and secret societies formed a group, a kind of collusion group, there's a word for it, a joint department or something with the other civilization in the future. That's how it's all working. I'm not going to say anymore now. I'll let you overcome on your own.
Wow, that was awesome, man. I was tripping balls. Balls to the wall.